I have a list of things that I've done, but I would also like to add to that list and make a handout available to everyone of, oh, I didn't think of that. Like maybe this is something I can do. So that's kind of what my plan is for the next, I think I get 45 minutes. I'll try to talk as fast as I can, but slow enough that you can get it and it makes sense. So about 7 years ago, I really felt God. That's kind of when I started my faith life with God, and I really started to feel like He wanted me to share my journey of what I've been through with others. Now, I'm going to tell you like my story back from high school. So I'm 41 years old. I should probably tell you who I am. I am a mom. I am a wife. I am an amputee. I have been I've had all sorts of different jobs in like mental health, but I really started feeling this pull, like He wanted me to share what my journey is on. So I slowly have started to share my journey that He's brought me on more and more. And so my story starts back when I was in high school. I got into a motorcycle accident. It was the last day of school of my sophomore year. We were waiting to go to a party. We were at a park riding around on motorcycles. I was trying to not be on one, and my friends were trying to get me to go on another ride. I didn't want to go. I didn't advocate well enough for myself, and I did try, but I gave in to peer pressure and ended up getting on a motorcycle. I obviously had no idea what was about to happen. So at the time I was dating, I finally like life was just good. I just found out I made varsity cheerleading. I was dating the star running back of the football team. Like life, for a 15-year-old was awesome. We had a summer full of plans that were, just waiting to be lived out. And that is not what happened at all. So I ended up, there was some cars there was 4 bikes, and there was some cars that had people in them that wanted to fight with the 2 guys that my friends were on the motorcycle with. So they started chasing us, and we were flying through town going 70 miles an hour. We got to a stoplight, and my friends and the bikes of the drivers turned left, and we went straight. There's 2 bikes, and the cars chased us instead of them. They didn't even know who we were, us 3. I didn't even know who they were. I was bawling. I didn't want to be on the motorcycle, and the driver said, "Just close your eyes, hang on, and this will be over soon." So I don't remember much going past those stoplights other than watching my friends turn and go away and not knowing what was going to happen next. And what happened was our bikes ended up colliding, and the cars were so close behind us that one of them went to swerve to miss me. They ran over my foot and went down into the ditch and ran over the guy that I was riding with and killed him. And the other guy ended up in the other ditch, and he had a permanent brain injury. So I actually was the lucky one out of all of that. So my foot had to be reattached. I broke my nose in 2 spots. I broke my cheekbone. I had a skull fracture. My brain was bleeding. And all of a sudden I was in the ICU, and I woke up wanting to know what happened. No one would tell me at first that the guy I was riding with had died. And I was one of those people, like, I really was a rule follower. Like, I didn't want to make anyone mad. I was a people pleaser. I've always been a people pleaser. And I felt horrible that he got killed. Like, even though like I didn't do it, and it was my friends that found him and wanted him to take me for a ride. Like, it was devastating. And all of a sudden, my life just got turned upside down. I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and then they put a hospital bed in my living room, and that's where I was for the rest of the summer. So my dad actually ended up hiring my best friend to take care of me because I couldn't do anything. They took the muscle from my stomach and like skin from my side to remake my foot. So I was never able to run again. And running used to be my thing. That's how I would get. I mean, I would run from one end of town to the other. Like, I loved running. And the amazing boyfriend that I had, after about a month or so, came over to tell me that he just couldn't go out with someone that couldn't do anything. And my friends, he actually went and started dating one of my friends, so that was even better. And I really found out who my friends were. Granted, 16-year-olds they're all about having fun. They don't want to go sit in someone's living room that's super awkward, that they don't know what to say because they feel bad about what happened. So, and I was pretty angry at the world of like, why did this happen? I did not have God, and not have any sort of faith that was going on in my life whatsoever at that point in time. So all of a sudden I had this new disability. I was in I was in a wheelchair for 6 months. I was on crutches for a year and a half. I had, even like my junior prom, I still had a walking boot on that we had to try to find fabric to wrap around it to make it from blue to black to match my dress. I was filled with a ton of shame. I felt really, really bad about myself because of how like hideous and ugly my foot looked. And because of my brain injury, I couldn't learn like I used to be able to. So I started falling behind in school. My school wasn't very accessible for wheelchair, so I would go to school with crutches. Well, if anyone's ever been on crutches and you try to get around after it's been raining, wet and crutches don't go together very well. So I would fall down a lot, and my pride would go right down with it, and it would hurt so much physically and emotionally that I would just leave school. So I eventually started going to an alternative school, which I was scared to do that. Alternative school, I'm doing air quotes right now, is like for bad kids. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just a bad kid now because I can't learn. I would read the same sentence, same paragraph over and over and over, and it just wouldn't make any sense at all. And everyone, they're like, oh, you're depressed, and you're, all of these things. They wanted me to go see a therapist. And I did try at first. I was very against it because I'm like, all I could picture was that typical like laying on a couch and someone with a yellow legal pad like taking notes. So the very first time I walked into this doctor's office, I'm not kidding, there was the couch, and he's like, have a seat or lay down, whatever you want. And out came the legal pad. And I was like, okay, this is not going to go well. And it didn't. And I didn't want it. I wasn't ready for it. And I hated it. And they wanted to put me on meds, and they wanted to mask the feelings that I needed to feel in order to move through this process. So inside I was sad that these meds were making me like acting like I was super happy and I was super full of energy. So I stopped taking those meds. As I went further into school, it got harder and harder, and I started increasing my time more at the alternative school. I was pretty sure that I wasn't going to graduate. My mom used some reverse psychology on me. I didn't know what it was at the time, but she said, why don't you just get your GED? And I was like, what? She thinks that's all I can do is get my GED. And I promise on everything that I have nothing against people that get their GEDs. I actually think it's harder than going to school because you have to have a lot of self motivation. But that was something that I didn't want. But I still had my little 15, 16-year-old at that point, I know everything attitude. So I wouldn't go to school. And my alternative school teacher, he finally started calling me and he's like, you coming to school today? I'm like, nope. Call again. Coming to school today? Nope. And he was like, okay, well, then I'm coming to pick you up. I'm like, no, you're not. I'm like, fine, I'll come in, but I'm stopping you to get a cappuccino first. So I slowly started going back to school again, and it was a safe place, and he had no judgment on me, and he was encouraging to me, but held me accountable for what I needed to do and what I needed to get done. And I ended up kicking butt and finishing all that I needed to, and I did graduate with my class. I was working with an agency called DVR at the time, and they told me that I would never be able to learn anywhere more than a 2-year college. So I listened to their advice, and I went to MATC in Madison, and I got a degree in real estate. Well, I stumbled upon a marriage and family and a criminology class. And I was like, what? Shut the front door. You can actually like what you're going to school for? So I ended up, I never stopped going to school. And I started taking more classes and more classes. And I eventually transferred to UW Whitewater and went into social work. I was on the dean's list every semester because it was something that I liked. And I had an amazing advisor who was there for me and who pushed me and who helped me navigate through the system. So I graduated with honors and ended up going to a residential treatment center for kids because they said, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And I was like, bring it on. So I worked there, or I did my internship there and ended up getting hired on there, where I actually stayed. Technically, I'm still employed with the company, but I started working there. I did leave there for about a month and worked at a group home in Madison. And I called to get my W-2s, and they offered me a full-time job back at that residential treatment center. And boy, if you ever want to learn really quick about how to de-escalate people, that is an area that you can learn a lot really quick. So I decided that I wanted to go back for my master's. And at the time, the only place you could go was UW Madison or UW Milwaukee. And I had to work full time. So I chose to try to get into Madison. Now, I never took my ACT, my SAT. My grades in high school were horrible because I never went. But I told my story and I advocated that, here's what my life has been like, and this is why you should accept me. And they did. So I ended up getting my master's and then got my license. So now I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And so all throughout this time, I still had I was living with a disability. I could still walk. My foot would get sore and tired. I would get about like an infection, maybe like once a year, that would put me in the hospital for about a week. I had a handicap or a disabled sticker that I would put in my car, and I would have people tell me, oh yeah, you're pretty handicapped. I would have mall security called on me. My 19-year-old self was a little bit spicier than my 41-year-old self is, and I had no problem letting people know what I thought about their comments to me and how judgmental they were about my disability. So I was able to do some things. I could still play sand volleyball, and I could bowl, but I couldn't go for long walks. I couldn't run. I was still limited. But that was kind of that first lens of living with a disability that I was looking at and looking through. And it was, I mean, it was hard. I went from one life to living a completely different life that I didn't expect. So during kind of my time that I was going to school, or like college, I ended up meeting my husband, and I knew after the very first date, I went in and I woke up my roommate and I was like, I like this guy. I am going to marry him. And actually, this summer, it will be 18 years that we've been together, and we'll be married for 14. So I never thought that I would find someone that like truly loved me for me because of what my foot looked like, and I was just very self-conscious of all of it. So I continued, with that kind of lens of living with a disability on, still just kind of that shame-filled stuff. Didn't do much with advocating other than mouthing off to people that, felt the need to tell me how I wasn't disabled. But it was kind of more of like a secret kind of thing that I just didn't really talk about. Well, throughout the years, people had told me that I should try to get my leg amputated. And for me, it was so hard because it was my foot and my ankle, and my leg was completely fine. But the last year, so in 2013, I'd had 3 infections that year. I had a hole in the bottom of my foot that just wouldn't close. So they tried to do a surgery where they took the muscle that was in my stomach and they moved the flap over to try to give me more cushion because I was basically walking like bone on the ground. So I had that surgery on February 8th of 2013. And I was in the hospital for a couple weeks, maybe like a week and a half, and finally able to go home. And I was in so much pain. Called the doctor, got me in on that Monday, and they direct admitted me to UW-Madison. And basically they told me that it didn't work. So my options were to have another surgery where they were going to take another muscle from my back or somewhere else, another skin graft. And like skin grafts are no joke. Like I've had babies and I would have 8 babies before having another skin graft. So I had to make the choice of having another surgery or having my foot amputated. And it was hard because at that time, I have 2 beautiful children. My daughter Jenna, she'll be 12 this year, going on 16, and I have a son who's 9. So at this time, my daughter was 4 and my son was 2, and I had already been away from them for a couple weeks, except for that short couple days that I was home. So I stayed in the hospital and they were trying to figure out if there's anything else they could do, but that was what I was left with. And then my doctor, he wasn't expecting me to be there, so he went on vacation for a week. So I laid there for a week trying to make the decision to have my leg amputated or to get another surgery. I ended up finding out that I was also on a cancer patient ward, and I really looked at it as, I can get my leg amputated, and everyone kept telling me how great it was going to be for me. If I could get my leg amputated, I can wear a leg. I can do all of these things that I've been wanting to do for so long. So I did that, and I looked at all of that and decided that getting my leg amputated was the right idea. So I had it all scheduled. I had my doctor that I trust more than anyone ever that was going to be a part of it. He had all the best surgeons lined up. And I ended up finding out right beforehand that my insurance wasn't going to cover it. And I had fought super hard to have my surgery done at Madison. And I talked to him and he said, it's a pretty routine surgery. It's pre-planned. You've fought hard enough. It's okay. Just go get it, go get it done and just go on and live life. Go be with your kids. So I was transferred to a different hospital. I thought I was getting amazing care. And all of a sudden, 11 months later, I was still having tons of pain. And come to find out, the surgeon cut my leg 2 inches too short. So I ended up having to have another surgery to fix and revise what she had done wrong. And since then, I've had 2 more surgeries. So that I was able to walk for a while with a prosthesis. So that kind of opened my eyes to a new level of disability. I was able to walk, I was able to do things, but it was different. My disability was more obvious. I had people that would come up to me and still say stupid things. Someone came up and they're like, "Oh, like, are you a veteran?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And they turned around and walked away. I was like, "Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to disappoint you. I'm just a regular person that had my leg amputated." But most people, they could see it, so they were more nice about it. I did have one old man that it was harder to tell when I had pants on in my leg, but because I had so many surgeries, I couldn't always walk very far. So I was using a motorized cart, and I think he wanted it for his wife. So he came up in the grocery store and was like, "Oh, I hope when I get old that I'm not lazy." And I reminded you that my 19-year-old self would have had a lot of different words to say to him, but I decided to go down a different aisle. I took my leg off, I stuck it in the cart upside down, and went up and parked right next to him. And the look on his face was absolutely priceless. Then he kind of was trying to be funny. I'm like, "Dude, you're not funny." So hopefully that taught him a lesson not to be judgmental of people that use scooters. So then the more surgeries I had, the more I wasn't able to walk. And it's been over 3 years now that I haven't been able to walk. So now I've had a whole new set of ways that I look at living with a disability. My father-in-law had to build a ramp so I can get inside my house. I have 3 scooters. I had to get a different vehicle so I could get a lift for my scooter. And I went to school for 8 or 9 years with everything and getting my license and all of that. And finally, 3 years ago, I ended up having to go on disability, which was a really hard decision to make too. Like, I felt shameful again because I didn't want to go on disability. That wasn't my goal in life. Like, I wanted to use my degree. I wanted to go do things, but the chronic pain that I have doesn't allow for that. I can't sit for long periods of time. So thankfully, God opened this door for me, and I started doing public speaking, and I also started teaching at UW-Whitewater. So I'm only an adjunct, so I only teach when they need me to. But I went from being told that I would never be able to learn at a school to now I'm teaching at the school that I was told I could never learn at. So sometimes I want to take that degree I have and go take it down there and be like, tell me something that I can't do. So that's kind of my story in a very shortened version of it, because I don't want to just talk about my story, which ended up being a little bit longer than I cared for it to be. But if you have any questions, please feel free to type them. I can't see anything and I can't tell anything that's going on. So
Well, so far someone says thank you for sharing. Just so you know, to that individual, unless you need to, please don't leave the webinar. There is more. We have more time. But someone says thank you for sharing.
awesome. Yeah, so I can't see anything. I can't see if you post questions or anything like that. So if you are, I apologize. So like I said, I've looked at different lenses of living with different disabilities. And the more that I've become disabled, the more I've paid attention to it, and the more that I have chosen my own life to make it a passion of mine to do things. So sometimes it's super small, where it's just me talking to a person about, hey, don't park in a reserved handicap or a reserved disabled spot because you don't have a sticker that says that you can. There was a mom that she's like, I just had a newborn baby and I just needed to run in quick. And I'm like, well, I don't have a leg, so that kind of trumps that. And I mean, like, now we're friends on Facebook, and so like I do try to be respectful about it, but I also make it known that like that's not okay. Other times I've taken pictures and I've sent them to the school, or I've called the school, or I've called businesses and said, people are parking where they're not supposed to be. And a lot of things that I find is that people really don't take the time to look at what life is like until it happens to them. If they're on crutches or if they have to be in a wheelchair, then they realize how difficult this world is set up for those of us living with a disability. So I have written letters to the editor. I've called and talked to the police department about, what they would like me to do if I see someone that's parked where they shouldn't be. They said that they want me to call them and they will come talk to them. I can take a picture and send it to them and they can go talk to them. I've started my own Facebook group, which is a disability advocates and warriors page. And like I already said, I've been doing public speaking now for, I think it's been 5 years that I've been doing it. I don't do it a ton. I really need to do it more, and I need to put myself out there more to do more of them. But I also do have 2 kids, so sometimes they keep me busy. But I love it. I love being able to share the story, but more than anything, I love meeting the people and what they're doing. So I created this form, and that's what's on my screen right now. I don't know if that's what's on your screen, but it's called
Should be.
Will You Let Us In? So I pulled a bunch of people from a bunch of different groups that I'm in, whether it's amputees or chronic pain or people with disability, living with disabilities, of what would make it easier for you to go into a store. And I took everyone's answers and the ones that I had of my own, and I made this checklist. And I started meeting with businesses. I've met with businesses as small as, like my dentist office. And I also met with one of the managers at Target, and I had him ride around in one of their scooters to see how awful it is to try to get around. And he was an anxious mess by the time we were done. And sadly, like, he told me that all these things were going to change and they were going to do this remodel and fix that. And the last few times I've been in there, they've actually made it worse because it's even harder to get around. They don't make things wide enough. They used to have like the carts or what they were hanging the clothes on were movable, and now they made them into these super heavy things that I can't move. So I'm waiting to get my anger under control about it before I contact them again. But it's made a difference. Like my dentist office, having where the disabled parking is, to have a sign outside that says what their phone number is and do you need help? And he went and he got a sign made just for that. And he was so excited to show it to me. And he went through I met with him and his wife when we went through the checklist, and someone was leaving. And I was like, okay. So they had steps and then they had like a ramp. And I said, now watch this lady. Right now, she's trying to decide, do I go down the steps because there's a railing to go down the steps, or do I go down the ramp because that's easier? But there's no railing. And all of a sudden, he hung his head down. And I was like, what's the matter? And I'm like, let's see what she decides to do. So she picked the steps so she could hang on to the railing, and she got down, and he said, that was my mom. So the next time I went, he had contacted someone and he redid his whole front entrance so that it's easier for people with disabilities to get into their store. And there's so many of these big box stores that are going out of business, but I don't think they realize how many people there are in this world that are living with a disability. How many people would love to go shop at Kohl's or go shop at, there's only 2 carts available, and like Kohl's doesn't have any at all. And I don't know about you guys, but when I go shopping, like I like to try things on. I thankfully do have my own scooter, so I can get around a little bit easier, but a lot of people don't have that. So, and they wonder why places go under. We have the Janesville Mall here, and every like Boston store closed, J.C. Penney's closed, the only one, Sears closed, and all of those places, not one of them had a way for someone with a disability to get around. And people that can't walk, they can't get around those stores. So again, just other things that I've done too is, besides meeting with businesses, is talking to my legislature. I'm Facebook friends and message him all the time of things that I would like to see changed and that I want to be part of what's going on in the legislature, of what can I do to help and what can I do to open your eyes to see all the different things that you don't see because you're not looking at it. There's a new app that's been working on, that has been working in the works for a long time. They just got it to website form. It's called the Ability website. And it was a 9-year-old boy that watched a man in a wheelchair and how much he struggled to get up. So he was on the Ellen show, and now he's went globally, worldwide. Alex Knoll is his name, Knoll. And I've tried working with him. I am one of their like ambassadors or whatever that will test out and review places. But there needs to be more awareness of places to go, to know, hey, I can't go in this place because there's no bathroom, or I can't go in here because there's no ramp to go inside. So it needs to be more than just one person. So the more people we get involved of making a difference, and the more that we can get people out telling people, and using a form like this and sharing it with businesses in your community or people that there's not going to, the number of people that are disabled is not going to go down with the baby boomers and the elderly. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And I mean, I say that with sadness, but we need to make a change, and it needs to be changed at so many different levels. Okay. So again, I talked a little bit too much, but I want to hear from you guys now. If you're able to unmute yourself and talk about what you have done or what kind of advocacy that you're doing, and if there's anything that the rest of us could get from it, and if you are not live right now and you're listening to this later on, please contact me and let me know what your thoughts are and what I can add to the list, and I will make sure to get it distributed back to Matthew, or embedded into this website.
So I've already taken the liberty to type your email address as well as the name of the Facebook group into the chat box. I would ask as moderator that if anyone wants to make a contribution, try typing it into as a question or into the chat. If I do see someone in particular raise their hand, I can mute you if you would like to make a quick comment, but we do try and preserve maximum audio quality when we do these things. So let's see what people have for you here, Jesse. Maybe it's a lot to process here on a still rainy Tuesday night, but we'll give folks a second.
Well, and all I can see from mine is that there's only one attendee, so I'm hoping there's more than one person that I'm talking to.
There are more. Some of them may be away from their device or have another window open at the moment, but there are more. Let me piggyback off of something you just said. With the all the public advocacy and interfacing with businesses and conversing with a legislator that you do, have you ever considered running for office?
With my children and the amount of sports that they do, I would have no time to run for office. I do a lot of volunteer work where, like, right before this started, all the COVID stuff, I was so excited. I just started volunteering, running a girls group at an alternative school in Janesville to kind of just give back and let them know that, if I can do it, anyone can do it. I also have been part of the mental health, like trauma informed care movement for the last 15 years. So I've volunteered to help schools. And I was supposed to go this one wasn't a volunteer, it was a paid opportunity, but to give a presentation to a community in Crivets about mental health and talking about my story, but also mental health and how to recognize symptoms of mental health and what to do about it with kids. So between all of that, my kind of passion projects, I feel like, and I also do stuff with the Amputee Coalition. So I'm on part of we're trying to get a bipartisan bill passed for amputees in Wisconsin, that the Insurance Fairness Act, where we get the same benefits as someone that gets, so if you get your knee replaced, that's actually a prosthesis. So they might approve, for them to get 6 weeks of physical therapy, but someone that gets their leg amputated and needs a prosthesis, they don't get the same amount of physical therapy visits. So I had heard about it from somebody else, and he was working with his legislator, and I called my legislator, and one's Democrat and one's Republican, so they're working together on trying to get this bill passed. So for me, I like to be on that side of things more than, maybe once my kids get older, I would think about something like that, but not at this time.
Fair enough. And we have a couple of comments. Someone says, I am a youth mental health first aid instructor and trauma informed care champion. So she says that is awesome that you have that background. So one thing Jessie does not do all that well is pat herself on the back, but I think this person is saying that it's okay to do that.
Thank you. I'm actually certified in I'm a certified trauma informed care mental health provider. So I went through a year-long learning collaborative. So I am trained in it also, but you're right. I don't like to feel like I'm bragging, I guess, like, and that's how I kind of feel it when I don't ever want people to be like, oh, she's just talking about how great she is. So I really try not to do that. So I hope no one ever takes it that way.
And we've got a follow up saying your work is very important. Thank you for that. And it strikes me that you and I, Jessie, are both individuals with physical disabilities, but through the work that we do, we wear different hats, and we've learned a lot also, and have hopefully things to offer our communities and families regarding disabilities that you can't see. So the checklist may deal primarily with barriers and physical accommodations, but the principles of advocacy behind the checklist and some of these components of your story, I think, have a great deal of application to our work, and hopefully for those of you listening, you can get some takeaways and be inspired by something that you've heard today. So we have about 5 minutes remaining. Anything else you'd like to cover in the short time, Jessie?
If anyone has any other questions, if you want me to talk more about something like that I didn't touch on long enough, or you want to know like how to go about doing something, a lot of this advocacy stuff and even just public speaking, and I have my own blog. So that's I have a website that's www.limlaughlove.com. And then I also have a Facebook page called Lim Laugh Love. So really, putting myself out there was a really scary thing to do for me. And I was just talking today to someone about, when the biggest one I did was 750 people, and I got my evaluations back, and I had people that were just cruel. They were like, oh, what a sob story. Now, when I did this speech, normally when I give them, like, it's just me. I don't really know anyone. Maybe, there's a couple of faces in the audience that I recognize professionally. But when I did this one, I had my husband, my kids, my mom, and like pretty much like all the important people in my life sitting in front of me and sharing the stories. I went a lot more in depth about my marriage, my kids, not being able to carry my son after the age of 2. Like, there's a lot more to my story that I didn't share a lot of today just from time constraints. And I'm an emotional person. And looking at my family's cute little face, like, I got choked up. And someone's like, wow, what a downer way to start a training. And I had myself the biggest pity party for like a couple hours that day of, I can't believe I did, like, I'm never doing this again. And, like, one of the best pieces of advice I got was from a friend that was there, and he's a judge now, but he's like, Jess, there's 750 people there. You got 100 comments. 50 of them or 25 of them were, mean or not good. There's probably 300 people that thought it was great, but they just didn't say anything. So I have to remember, especially when things are anonymous, people can get really mean and really cruel, and I can't take it personally, and I can't carry that into my next presentation, because that's not what my purpose is. Because you know what? You try to get up in front of 750 people and then tell me how easy it is to keep your emotions in check and to do everything flawlessly. So until you've done that, I don't want to hear from you. It's kind
So
of my
I
motto.
I think that's great advice. So we do have a couple additional. Well, one comment which says, "Keep doing what you're doing. You're great." And I'm biased, but I concur with that. And
Thank
your question to that person who I know is still on the line, I would say to email Jesse the question that you pose in the chat box. It's a bit of a personal nature, so if you wouldn't mind doing that, I'm sure she will answer your email. Uh, but it's not
there's
something.
no question. You can ask me any question. There's no question that I will not answer. So
It's
please
not. It's not something that I want to make public, Jesse.
no. I'm just letting people know, like, feel free to reach out to me. If there's a group that, you feel like, oh, I'd really love for her to come talk, like, I love being able to share this journey. And if there's any, if I can help one person when I'm doing it and inspire them to want to do more and get more involved and to help others or to help their loved ones or to help themselves, it's not easy to be disabled and living it. My life changed again with, going on disability, and I'm a people person, so I'm used to being around people all the time. And all of a sudden I was stuck at home with no one. My when I would like attack them because I'm so excited to have human interaction. So this whole COVID-19 thing is kind of like a reminder for me of this is what my life has been like for 3 years. And people are now seeing what it's like, and they don't really like it, but I feel like they have a better understanding of what it's like to live a little bit better understanding of what it's like to be forced to do something that wasn't your choice.
Yep, I hope you're right about that. I also hope that we get back to some semblance of whatever our normal has been relatively soon. We have one outstanding comment. We want to be respectful of people's time, but this needs to be shared. This individual says, I've taken humanity down several notches, but you, all caps, are an inspiration. Thank you for sharing your story. It's valuable and worthy of being shared. So I don't know the individual who said they've taken humanity down several notches. I'm guessing if you're on this webinar, that's probably not true. But thank you for the comments for Jesse, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, you guys. I really do appreciate it. I know this is different, and I wish I could see all your faces. And I hope one day we can figure out a way to do something where I can see who you are and what you look like. But if you want to see what I look like, feel free to check out my Facebook page of Limb Laugh Love. And yeah, just contact me if you need anything whatsoever. Or you can print this. This is not a trademark thing of the Will You Let Us In. If you do use it, and post it and tag me in it, friend me on Facebook. I'm happy to share whatever I can with people. So I appreciate so much that you take this hour out of your busy day to listen to my journey that I've been on. And I appreciate all of your comments more than you know. And I hope to do it again someday. So
we hope we can make that happen. If not via the webinar format, down here in our Milwaukee office would be great. It might cut out some folks that had the opportunity to listen today, but in-person presentations are hopefully going to be an option for us in the not too distant future. So with that, that will conclude the meat of today's presentation. So just a couple of things, as I mentioned at the top, this was recorded, so you'll be receiving that and a SurveyMonkey evaluation link in an email a couple of hours after we conclude. So watch for that. That will come from the GoToWebinar program, not from Matthew, Jesse, or Wisconsin Facet. So we appreciate you taking a couple minutes to fill that out. And as always, feel free to visit wifacets.org. Training page for future workshops on special education and other themed trainings, all of which are free. So feel free to check those out and join us again, and have a very good evening, folks.
Yes, thank you guys so much. I can't tell you enough. Have a great evening and please stay safe. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you. I'll be in touch. I'm going to end the webinar now.
Okay, sounds good. I will talk to you later.
Soon. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.